The night my daughter had security drag me out of her house. She looked me in the eyes and said, "I never loved you." I didn't argue. I didn't cry because she had no idea who actually owned the building she worked in. I didn't defend myself at that moment. I didn't cry because there was something my daughter didn't know, and I was waiting for the right time for her to learn that truth. The cold I felt as the door of his house closed behind me was deeper than the November wind hitting my face. My suitcase lay beside me as if I too were an abandoned object. 30 years of marriage, raising a child, all the sacrifices. And this is the result. The door of my house was locked. Someone else was inside in my place. I walked toward my car, my steps heavy, feeling as if I were carrying lead in my legs. Victoria, my daughter, her last words still echoed in my ears. "Mom, I never really loved you. Go outside. I'd rather Dad and Patricia stay here." Patricia, my ex-husband's new wife, the woman who took my place. The second landlady, the one who kicked me out. That night, I slept in a cheap hotel on the outskirts of the city. The bed was hard, the walls poorly insulated, and the occupants of the room next door had been crying all night. But I couldn't change the situation. When I finally drifted off to sleep, it was because I was so tired, not mentally, but physically. In the morning, I checked my cell phone and suddenly realized I'd received an email. The email subject was from the accountant. It was about stocks and my investments, my grandmother's inheritance, money from the farmhouse years ago. I never told anyone. It could have been found by the judge during the divorce proceedings, so I kept quiet. I invested part of that money in the building where my daughter works, not as a business partner, but as the owner. This transaction, which I did through an administrative company, ensured that no one would see my name. I owned that building, the building where my daughter worked as a manager, the building that my daughter considered important. My phone vibrated. The mail details had arrived. Building reports, visitor logs, employee complaints. They were all coming to me. When I opened it and read what was written about my daughter, I felt nauseated. Victoria Hayes is rude and ruthless towards her team. She yells at minor mistakes. She presents others' ideas as her own. She makes people cry in meetings. I was looking at someone I didn't know. That day, I went up to the 45th floor of the building disguised as a potential customer. Different clothes, different hairstyle. Victoria walked right past me. She didn't even recognize my own daughter. What I saw broke my heart. He was using the unconditional love I gave him to torment others. He was abusing his power. He was humiliating people. When I returned to my motel that night, I felt like an old woman sprawled on the street, worn out, used, useless. But at the same time, something awakened within me. It wasn't anger yet. Anger is almost like that. This was something else. He waited 2 days to make a decision. On the morning of the third day, I wrote a message from my secure email account. I poured out my anger onto the page, writing and writing. Then I was going to press the send button, but I didn't give a specific date. I had a glimmer of hope that maybe things could change. That hope stayed with me for weeks. Not a single call, not a single message. It was as if I had vanished. I waited for my ex-husband to say something about his daughter. Nothing. Did he mention Patricia? No mention at all. I too threw that harvest of hope into the fire, the effing motel, and opened the email. I read it paragraph by paragraph. Then I clicked send. Hours later, I imagined Victoria's cell phone ringing, and she would see an incoming call. Her employment contract was terminated instantly. The reason? Due to systemically abusive behavior and inappropriate management practices towards her employees. Within a day, Victoria's calls started. 15 calls, 12 messages, 3 voicemails. She deleted them all. I wasn't ready. I'd forgotten I bought myself a house with the money they hid in the divorce proceedings. A secret house with a garden and a veranda on the outskirts of the city. Not for anyone else, just for me. When I carried my suitcase there, I felt peace for the first time. I had been devastated, but the floor I was staying on belonged to the company. It was their floor. When I put the books on the shelves and hung the photos on the walls, I felt like I had rebuilt myself all day long. This was completely mine. Nobody could take that away from me. My sister called. She said my daughter had come to my house to help me. She needed money. She had lost her job and had no income left. Her father and Patricia had promised to help, but then they chose to save her money instead. Irony, my daughter had chosen me, and now she found herself abandoned. A week later, he was standing at my door. She looked small, vulnerable, with teary eyes. "Mom, please, we need to talk," she said. I stood in the doorway. I didn't invite them in. "Not yet," I said. She cried outside on my veranda on that cold evening. My instincts told me to open the door, but my resolve was stronger. If I save him now, he'll learn nothing. I knew he needed to understand that now, without failing, without hitting rock bottom. He needed to be reborn. A month, 2 months, 3 months passed. Slowly, change began. My daughter went back to work in a low position with low pay. She called my brother telling him he was acting like some kind of orange goose. But she seemed to be changing. She started volunteering in the community, working with older people, listening to their stories, developing empathy. 3 months later, a letter arrived, handwritten, 6 pages long. "Mom, I'm sorry. When I thought you were turning back, I realized I was just starting to get scared. Then I watched myself. I watched who I was, and I saw someone I didn't like. I saw how cruel I was to the person who loved you the most. Even though you were always there, I chose you, and you saved me by letting me fail. Because sometimes true love means walking away." I read the letter 3 times. I looked for manipulation. I found none. 2 weeks later, I wrote back to him. "I'll let him see the change, but it will be slow. We'll have coffee. We'll talk. There will be boundaries. This is a beginning, not an end." Our first coffee was strange. The second was better. And the third too. Slowly but surely, we built something healthy. A relationship, not mother and daughter, but to adults. Both flawed, both struggled, but together. My daughter found a boyfriend. She decided to get married. She invited me to the wedding. She just wanted me to be there. No money, no responsibility. She just wanted me to be there. At the wedding, he thanked me before anyone else. "My mother taught me that love without limits isn't true love," she said. "She saved me by letting me fail, because true love sometimes means walking away." Everyone cried. I cried too. And from that moment on, everything changed. As time passes, some habits begin to lose their meaning. But people may realize this too late. While everything may seem orderly and ordinary from the outside, small details can subtly suggest that something is amiss. When behaviors that become part of daily routine are left unquestioned, the truth silently grows. People often only realize later that they have completely relinquished control over a life they have shared for many years. Delays that initially seem insignificant, decisions with unclear explanations, and unresolved issues become a heavy burden over time. The most difficult part of this process is being caught between doubt and acceptance. On one hand, there are the connections formed in the past, and on the other, an inner unease. People often fear not learning the truth, but how their lives will change after learning it. Therefore, some questions are not asked and some answers are postponed. But every truth that is postponed may confront them much more harshly later on. The first week after the wedding, my daughter invited me for tea. It was in a small cafe. The sun was shining through the window. And for the first time, she started asking me questions that seemed to be asking me questions. She listened to my answers. She really listened. "Mom, sometimes I wonder," she said, holding her cup, "if you had let me into your home that night, would I have changed so much?" I took a deep breath. "No, you wouldn't change." "Why are you so sure?" "Because when there are flaws, people don't learn lessons without suffering. I would save you, solve everything, handle every problem from afar. Then, for the 100th time, you get angry at me, and I'd revert to my role as the understanding mother, forgetting the instructive lessons. The cycle would never be broken. Victoria, my daughter's name, is Victoria, but I always called her Vicky, sat quietly. Together, we looked out the window. People were passing by on the street, some in a hurry, others at a leisurely pace. Everyone was busy with their own lives. "I visited my father again," she said slowly. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear that, but I listened. He was playing the victim. He asked if we had any money. He said he didn't know how he and Jennifer were going to pay the bills. He said he wanted to give me a gift for the wedding but didn't have any money. A familiar scene. My ex-husband blaming others for his own failures. "What did you say in response?" I asked. I told him, "Dad, I became a self-sufficient individual. I hit rock bottom. I worked hard. I got back on my feet. You can do it too. And then I consulted you. You told me he shouldn't ask me for money." I felt proud. Yes, because he spent his money according to his own choices. "It's not your responsibility." Victoria's eyes welled up with tears. He got angry. He said I was selfish. He said if even his mother supported his father when he made mistakes, Then as a daughter, I should support him too. My own mistake again. I've thought like that for years. The culture of responsibility, guilt, all those rumors, acting like mothers. If you choose to support him, will you support you? I asked. Victoria shook her head. No, he would leave me before his money ran out. Then your choice was the right one. We continued to see each other for weeks after that, skiing, hiking, some days she said that just being with me was enough. She had a boyfriend, Marcus, with her. When she introduced him, he treated me with respect. He listened to me honestly. He loved Victoria very much. I heard a little about your mother's story, he said at a dinner party. I heard you were a very strong woman. I can promise I'll look after Victoria very carefully because she cared about him so much. I told my sister, I'll hang this kid, she said. He'll die a good death. As time went on, changes occurred in my life. I started going to support groups for divorced women. I talked to people in the same situation as me. We all said the same thing. We gave too much. One day, my group therapist asked me, now, what are you giving yourself? At first, I had no answer, but I started thinking. I enjoyed painting. I enjoyed reading books. I enjoyed traveling. I hadn't done any of those things in a while. I started spending Sundays at the library. In the evenings, I would turn on the lights and read books. I would sit on the veranda, drink tea. I wasn't doing anything. I was just being there, and I found that incredibly therapeutic. A year passed. Victoria and Marcus decided to get married. Was in the garden, not the cathedral. Simple but beautiful. Victoria wore a dress we had chosen together. When I saw her walk down the aisle, tears welled up in my eyes. She wasn't a little girl anymore. She was a grown woman, a woman who had learned to love herself, to respect others, and to set boundaries. At reception time, something unexpected happened. Victoria went to the microphone. There's something I want to tell my mother, he said. The room fell silent. A few years ago, I was a terrible person. I kicked my mother out of my house. I fired her from her job. I want to thank her for letting me live with the consequences of my choice, for allowing me to be here today to be a truly good person. He asked her to stand up. Everyone was watching. My daughter was thanking me in front of millions of people. Mom, I love you more than anything you can imagine. I looked like I was in a costume with red eyes, as if I were performing a ceremony, but that's just how I existed. 6 months later, Victoria told me she was pregnant. She was going to have a daughter. She invited me to be like a nurse. I was there during the birth, holding her hand. I heard my first grandchild's chirp and felt love raining down on me. It was a kind of love I had never experienced before. Unconditional, selfless, without any worries in my mind, just joy. Her granddaughter's name was Eleanor, a name like Lady Eleanor, a beautiful name. For the first few months, I helped Victoria raise Eleanor, putting her to sleep at night, cleaning up. But I did one very important thing. I maintained boundaries. I respected Victoria's decisions. If she said the baby shouldn't sleep anymore, I didn't interfere. If she said, I want to be quiet, I didn't go and sit down. Conclusion, Eleanor grew up in a healthy, balanced environment with a grandmother who supported her mother's decisions but didn't bear her burden. Eleanor was 2 years old and so curious. She asked about everything. Grandma, why did you cry? Because I was happy, sweetie. Oh, me too. When she turned 3, she started learning about the family story, about me, about her father, about how her mother kicked me out of the house. Victoria explained it very carefully. There was a time when I treated Grandma badly, but when she picked me up, I was punished too, because everyone needs to take responsibility for their actions. Eleanor heard this very thoughtfully. When she was 5, she started to understand things. We saw an old woman crying in the street, and I asked Eleanor, would you like to help this person? She nodded very happily. She took out the money and gave it to the woman. Then she asked me, has anyone helped her? Maybe, I said. It should be, because people should help each other. My best lesson, he broke his friend's toy. He expected his mother to perhaps make amends. No, his mother told him he had to apologize and give some of her own toys to his angry friend. Eleanor cried, but she had learned her lesson, and she told him not to do it again. Victoria says she remembered one day, the day she kicked me out of her house. The security guard came, merciful eyes, but the decision that sent me out. Now I don't understand, said the girl. How could you do this to your mother? Victoria replied, because I was young and foolish. Because I hadn't suffered. Because I had the courage to treat people badly and no one punished me. Until your mother stopped me. But because you behaved badly, didn't your mother treat you badly too? No, he was making me experience the consequences. This is very different, Eleanor. Don't confuse love with tolerance. When I was a little older, Eleanor asked me, Grandma, are you mad at Mom for kicking you out of the house? We had a long conversation. I told them that anger changes with time, that sadness and understanding come. But most importantly, Eleanor, that was a very bad turning point for you. Your mother was forced to be strong. I was forced to be strong too. And now we're both living good lives. So I saw that night as a moment of great change. It felt good. Eleanor frowned. Wasn't it great? You cried, didn't you? I cried a lot. But sometimes pain is necessary for healing. This in Eleanor's brain. When she was 9 years old, she did a school assignment, research about social work. She asked Grandma if she could write my story, a story that begins with my name, about the girl who kicked me out of her house, and then about the girl who got better. When she read it, it was written correctly, completely. Pain, healing, lessons, love, all of it. The teacher gave it an A+. It's a powerful story, she said. I envy how it captures these lessons in your family. Eleanor told me this. She hugged me. I love you, Grandma. And I held it tightly and cried. But this time, they were tears of kindness. When things start to become clearer, the loss isn't just financial. Trust is shaken, years of effort are questioned, and people reconsider their own decisions. The disappointment at this point isn't just a momentary lapse, but a prolonged process. Yet, this awareness, however painful, is the first step towards change. And it is precisely at this stage that people begin to take responsibility for their own lives again. As time went on, my daughter and I deepened our relationship. We became not just mother and daughter, but friends. We shared our lives, our sorrows, our joys, our fears, our hopes. When Victoria got a promotion at work, I was the first person she called. When she was having problems in her marriage, I became her counselor. Eleanor was in high school and preparing for university. She consulted me about this. We never talked about my ex-husband. He wasn't a part of our lives anymore. Neither was Patricia. Our relationships were their own, not mine. When Victoria confronted him, she made several requests for money. None were answered. That's when she made her decision. Her father explained that he wasn't her life. If only he had looked after me, Victoria said one night. Perhaps I would have looked after him alone. But he only works when I'm needed. And then I'm not his daughter, but his ATM. This behavior doesn't deserve anyone's love. I had learned the same thing. 10 years have passed. We were celebrating my 70th birthday in my garden with the sunshine, cakes that Victoria had baked. Eleanor had gone to university and was hosting me at her home. Marcus's garden was green, filled with our beauty. I asked Victoria, "Do you ever regret firing me that night?" She thought for a moment. Yes, but I wouldn't change it because that pain gave both of us new lives. I escaped being stuck in an unworthy mold, and you learned your own worth. Pain can be constructive, but only when it's devoid of compassion. Eleanor sat down next to us and said, smiling, she was Anne's sister. Maybe I'll get one for her too. I hope you won't need something like that, I said. But if it happens, I'm ready, she replied. Because you and Anne taught me. I have responsibility, my choices have consequences, and I can't just live with that. I can live with it. Watched the sunset and celebrated everything it offered me. A painful journey, stubborn failure, difficult decisions, and finally, peace. After all these years, I found myself very different from where I started. I wasn't a divorced woman. I was a woman in control of herself. I wasn't a rejected mother. I was a mother whose daughter chose me. I wasn't someone who was used. I was a strong woman with boundaries. And that changed everything. Because everything progressed so slowly, it was difficult to notice. As the days passed, it quietly became normalized that some decisions were made unilaterally. People continue to trust the established order, only realizing too late that control is slipping away. Details that initially seem reasonable begin to create inner unease over time. As questions multiply and the answers remain unclear, an inner restlessness ensues. The most difficult part of this process is the conflict between what you know and what you feel. Shared memories from the past clash with present doubts. People want to believe that what happened is just a temporary confusion because accepting the truth means a fundamental change in life. Therefore, some signs are ignored and some conversations are postponed. 40 years later, I sit in my little yellow house, watching the tree shadows dance on my windowsills. My cat is dead now, but my new cat, Sophia, sleeps beside me. The flowers in my garden are red and yellow this season. They are the flowers that Victoria and Eleanor planted over the past 40 years. Victoria's question, it's still in my mind. Do you regret it? No, absolutely not. But if we have to explain it from beginning to end, let's describe this section. Last week, Eleanor graduated from university. She was the top student in her freshman year. She studied psychology and wanted to be a family counselor because she told me, I saw how much you and Anne taught me. I want to teach people that. What the limits of love are, what responsibilities are, why respect is important. When I felt proud, Eleanor hugged me. A quick kiss on my earlobe. If you hadn't given me these lessons, Grandma, I wouldn't be like this. That made me cry. And I cried a lot. Victoria and Marcus had their second child, a boy. His name is Owen, not like Eleanor, but equally handsome. At 5 years old, he calls Eleanor big sister and imitates her every move. I asked Victoria one day, are you angry with yourself? Because of your choices? Because of your behavior? A little, she said honestly, but only when I think about that night, when I think about the coldness that hit my face, when I think about how you cried yourself to bed. But then I watch Eleanor, I watch Owen, I know how good a mother I am to them. And that's only possible because you taught me how to teach love, but it takes courage to teach. I nodded my head to indicate that I understood. My ex-husband died 4 years ago, a heart attack. Victoria said that if he called a woman now, he would find relief from the source of all his emotions. But he didn't call, so he saw me as a healing wound. He said calmly, something he wanted to close. Once he opened it, he didn't stop. When he closed it, you were the one who made the decision and moved forward. I know nothing about Patricia. After my ex-husband, I don't know where she is, what she's doing, or even if she's alive. It was over. Someone I didn't need. So let me list the truly important lessons I've learned in 40 years. First, value yourself. For the first half of my life, I never did this. I was everything to everyone. A shadow for my husband, a guide for my daughter, a stone shirt for my friends. I was nothing to myself. But I know that unless I love myself, no one has to love me. I didn't choose it. They used me as they found me. Now every morning I look in the mirror and say, good morning, precious woman. If that sounds silly, no protective, complimentary, necessary. Second, set boundaries. I still don't regret firing my daughter from her job at all because it was a boundary. If you don't respect me, there will be consequences. My daughter's life changed because there were consequences. If I had always protected her, it would never have changed. Boundaries are the roof of love, not the fence. They help protect love. Third, allow yourself to fail. In this world, failure is the best teacher. My daughter lost her job, but she would never have learned where the source of her strength lies without losing her job. Because when she failed, she found that strength within herself. Fourth, get yourself together. After the divorce, there were years when I didn't buy myself anything. I wouldn't get a haircut. I wouldn't buy clothes. I wouldn't take care of my nails. It was as if I was punishing myself. But then my sister asked me, why are you being so mean to yourself? Just because they don't treat you badly doesn't mean you have to be mean to yourself. When it's right, it's very right. Now I go to the hairdresser every week. My hair is blue, red, pink. My clothes are colorful. My nails are done. I have summer sunglasses. And this might seem like an excuse, but it's not. This means I am valuable. Fifth, respect the decisions of others, but don't be responsible for them. My ex-husband cheated on me. That was his decision. My daughter disowned me. That was her decision. Patricia became a new woman in my house. That was her decision. These weren't my faults. Because for years, I felt as if their choices were my fault. Why? Because they told me it was my problem. But it wasn't. Other people's decisions belonged to them. Sixth, kindness has a price. As children, we are told to be good, help, build, but no one ever tells us, at some point, good people get used. For 40 years, I have been learning that being good requires love, but love also requires not allowing yourself to be used. Seventh, Forgiving the past does not mean forgetting it. I've already forgiven my daughter, but I'll never forget that night when the security guard kicked me out. Forgiving doesn't mean keeping the structure assault oven, as it was when you did it. It simply means not letting the past control your present. Eighth, joy is found in simple things. This is the simplest lesson. Right now, I love sitting in the garden. I love reading books. I love having coffee with my daughter. I love hearing my grandchild's voice. These aren't millions of things, but they occupy millions of places inside me. Last month, a journalist contacted me. He wanted to read my story. I asked my daughter, should I do it? Victoria's response, if other mothers read this and can value themselves, set boundaries, and distance themselves, then yes, do it, because you have to. So, I'm recording this here. This story isn't just mine. This story is about other people's mothers, other people's daughters. This story is about someone else needing to save the oyster, someone else needing to demand respect. This story is about someone else needing to find their voice. Right now, this is a summary of the values that have endured for 40 years. Love yourself, set boundaries, let others fail, forgive the past, but don't forget it. Don't take responsibility for others. Seek joy in simplicity. And most importantly, dare to walk away. Distancing oneself isn't without reason. Distancing oneself is another form of love, just a more dignified form. Because sometimes the best way to love someone is to let them face the consequences. Eleanor writes to me as she travels all over the world, from Paris, from Tokyo, from Nairobi. In all of them, she talks about me. She tells how she rescued me from being a broken woman. She tells how you transformed me into a strong woman. Grandma, she writes in her last letter, I want to tell all the people in the world, joy is found in simple things. Love is found within its limits. And sometimes taking a step back is the strongest step. She writes and writes and writes. My daughter writes too. Mom, I've become a manager too. But this time, I'm being kind to people because you showed me that the right use of power empowers people, not breaks them. As I write this section, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun is rising outside. Sophia woke up and hugged my legs. I'll make her some coffee. I'll write next to her. I'll send a message to my daughter. Morning, I love you. Return, I love you too, Mom. Coffee tonight? Yes, I will write. Because now, saying yes doesn't mean thinking I'll lose someone else. Because now, I am who I am. I'm not alone, but I'm not defined by others either. 40 years. Divorce, rejection, loss, rebuilding, forgiveness, reconciliation. All of that was necessary to get here, to a peaceful place where I am content with myself, where I have boundaries, where I am loved. If someone else walks the same path, and many do, you should tell them this story. Those who abandoned you aren't trash. You can forgive those who hurt you, but you don't have to open your home to them. There are people who might use you, but there are also people who might be there for you. Choose yourself, because this will be the rest of your life, not someone else's. I'm looking out the window. The sun has fully risen. Birds are singing in the garden. Sophia is making a ron. Your coffee is brewing. This is my life. This is something I've been taught, not something I've fought against. No, not something given to me by others, but thanks to the limits I've set for myself, the boundaries I've imposed on myself, and it was worth the passage of 40 years. Sometimes being a mother isn't about forgiving. Sometimes stepping back is the only way to teach. This story doesn't end with the revelation of what happened. Its true meaning is gained through the steps taken afterward. Sometimes, people experience their greatest shocks in the places where they feel safest. And accepting this reality takes time. However, awareness, no matter how late it comes, carries the power to reshape life. What is lost may never return, but the time that remains can be lived more consciously, more firmly, and with more control. The most important step in this process is not to view what happened as a personal failure. Some situations are the result of the abuse of good intentions and trust. One may not foresee every detail beforehand, and this doesn't make one weak. On the contrary, being able to stand up after seeing the truth is a sign of true strength. This story also reminds us how valuable it is to ask questions and stay involved in the process. There's a crucial difference between trusting and completely relinquishing control. Taking responsibility for your own life doesn't weaken relationships. It makes them healthier. And sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that lead you in the right direction. Ultimately, what remains is not the devastation caused by what happened, but the awareness that arises from it. This awareness can empower not only one life, but also others who are going through similar situations. Every ending also opens the door to a new beginning, and this story was told precisely to remind us of that.